Joining us now, Sean Davis, CEO and co-founder of The Federalist, who's on the phone and watching all of this really closely. Sean, good to have you with us, sir.
Good to be with you. Thank you for having me.
What do you make of Kim Cheatle's awful testimony today?
So I've been in politics, involved in it or covering it for almost 25 years now. I spent a lot of time on the Hill, sometime in the Senate as a chief investigator for Tom Coburn. In my entire life, I have never seen a witness this comically awful. I've never seen anything like it. I don't know how she sleeps at night. I don't know how she gets up in the morning and goes to work. It was obscene what she did. And honestly, the idea that she can resign and have this be over, or be fired and have this be over, I think is nuts. She needs to be in prison.
Yeah, I mean, the shooter here is not alive to be facing charges. It's not like some investigation that's going to result in criminal charges would be upset by her sharing details. Everybody wants to know answers to really basic questions, and she's refusing to give anything, Sean.
Well, right. And what I found so dishonest about it is, there were some questions that she probably doesn't know, which is fair.
Right.
It was her job to protect the president, not, prosecute the person who shot him. But she refused to answer basic questions about things that happened beforehand that she was ostensibly in charge of and maybe even approved of. For example, how many agents did you have there?
Right.
There's no reason on earth why she couldn't answer that. And the idea that somehow she needs a 60-day long investigation by Chris freaking Wray to tell us who signed off on not giving them the counter snipers or covering that rooftop is absolutely absurd. Honestly, I wish they would have called the hearing short today, found her in contempt, and ordered the sergeant at arms to just take her to custody then.
Yeah, that would have been a better outcome than what we got. So Congressman Pete Sessions today asked her about whether or not anyone at the Secret Service has been disciplined so far. And she said not yet. It's pending the results of an investigation, which is staggering because a man has been killed at a Secret Service protected event. Several Americans have been wounded, to include the former president of the United States and now what it looks like future president of the United States. How do they not at least place Secret Service officials on an administrative leave, Sean Davis? Does that mean that more people are imperiled now today as a result of this?
Yeah, I don't know how you could come to any other conclusion other than that if you're a protectee of the Secret Service right now, you should be getting on your knees and praying to God that he will save you or maybe just send you a new security detail. I don't understand how anyone could have any confidence in their ability to do anything other than sit around and wait for a protectee to get shot.
It's truly awful. And now we're just finding out more and more information, to the extent that we get any, about how it looks like, according to Senator Ron Johnson, that local law enforcement and the Secret Service were not really in any sort of meaningful communication with each other, as a very real threat was emerging against President Trump. And that just demonstrates levels of incompetence that I didn't even think our government was capable of.
No, it's something when these people are able to somehow fall short of already low expectations. You know, it was interesting watching the rhetorical sleight of hand over the weekend from the Secret Service. First off, they just straight up lied when they claimed that they never denied the resources that Trump's detail wanted. That was a lie. And then they started leaking. It's interesting. She can't answer questions to Congress, but she and her slimy little friends over there can leak to the media and say, oh, it wasn't our responsibility to guard the perimeter. That was outside the perimeter, and that was the responsibility of local officials. Well, first off, who put it outside the perimeter? You know, we saw that picture. It looked like Pac-Man or a pizza with a couple slices taken out of it. Who decided to keep that building and that rooftop out of the perimeter, number one? And then number two, it doesn't matter who was delegated to do that. The protection of former and potentially future presidents and current presidents is the responsibility of the Secret Service. They don't just get to work with others and then kick the can down the road and say, oh, no, well, we said that local law enforcement was going to do that and they're responsible. That's not actually how responsibility works, and I found it absolutely infuriating to watch this idiot woman, at best, say, oh, I take responsibility, I'm accountable. You're clearly not, because if there's no changes after you nearly sent the country into civil war, which is what was going to happen if that bullet had been a centimeter to the right, you're not taking responsibility for anything. You're just mouthing words.
Yeah, you know, it was this answer that she gave to ABC that I think in the most crystal clear possible way demonstrated that she is a liar. Take a listen to this.
Should that roof have been secure, period?
That building in particular has a sloped roof at its highest point. And so, there's a safety factor that would be considered there, that we wouldn't want to put somebody up on a sloped roof. And so, the decision was made to secure the building from inside.
I think to any reasonable listener or observer of that clip, you conclude right away that you're not dealing with an honest person here, Sean.
No. Also, notice put aside the absurd lie that the roof was too slopey. I've done a little bit of construction in my time. That was a 212 roof, like 2 inches of rise for every 12 inches of run.
I know.
You could probably set a marble on it and it wouldn't fall off.
I had this thought. Every year I've got to put up Christmas lights and I got to stand on a sloped roof. And my roof is much more sloped, and I'm in a lot more peril. My wife's constantly freaking out about it. But I'm telling you, the Secret Service can handle it. I'm confident of that.
Yeah, but the other slimy wording that I noticed was the decision was made. Oh, really? By whom? Because decisions don't just make themselves. The passive language there, the decision was made.
Yes.
By whom, Kimmy? Who made the decision?
That came up today in the hearing. One of the lawmakers asked her who was responsible for signing off on this, on the final plan for the July 13th Butler, Pennsylvania event. Who's ultimately responsible for signing off on the security plan? And she kept on obfuscating the answer to that question. She was like, well, lots of people sign off on all sorts of elements. In other words, responsibility is so diffuse that nobody can be held accountable, Sean Davis.
Yeah, it's the thing when everybody's responsible, nobody is. And that's a wonderful excuse used by incompetent bureaucrats everywhere. I will say, before the hearing today, I have gone back and forth between thinking this was just typical incompetence cascading and resulting in catastrophe, or whether this was what I would call strategic incompetence, meant to provide a veneer of plausible deniability when the thing that they actually wanted to happen happened. And after watching her performance today, I actually have a pretty difficult time believing it was just garden variety incompetence. Her intransigence, her arrogance, her smugness, watching that, seeing the total lack of remorse, makes me wonder, did she actually want what happened to happen?
It's just awful to contemplate. I do think that one of the likely scenarios here is that the Biden administration has become very comfortable with the idea that the only people worth protecting are Joe Biden and his allies, and that everyone else should not be dignified with meaningful protection. That includes Donald Trump, who they begrudgingly give protection to as a former president of the United States, and Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who they refused to give protection to because they didn't want to make it seem like he was a legitimate political candidate, presidential candidate, by giving him Secret Service. And they did it for the, I think, just completely shallow reasons, Sean Davis.
Oh, yeah. The RFK thing, what I found so ridiculous. The man's father was assassinated, probably by his own government. His uncle was assassinated, probably by his own government. And then they had the audacity to look at him polling at 10, 15%, say, nah, of all the people on earth who might need it, you definitely don't.
Yeah.
It's such a middle finger. It's such an FU to the people in this country. And I don't think everyone is fully aware of just what a mob of complete corrupt gangsters we have running our government right now, but maybe more are aware after having watched the events of the last 10 days.
Yeah, I think so many people are attuned to that suspicion nowadays, which is a good and healthy impulse in light of all of the ways we've been betrayed by our own government. Hey, let me ask you additionally about betrayal in the form of the coup against Joe Biden that we're all witnessing right now. Yesterday, that letter being put out under Joe Biden's name with Joe Biden's signature affixed to it, an underline added for emphasis. What do you make of what just happened in the Democrat nomination process and what's coming next?
Yeah, I find it fascinating that the party that's been screeching nonstop about democracy for the past 4 years just decided that all those millions of people who voted for their nominee don't get a say. Mm-hmm. They kick this guy to the curb, and they're just going to pick a new nominee. So that alone I find just amazing. I will say I'm pretty disturbed that we've actually not seen any sight of Biden now for 4 or 5 days. He's allegedly, he was sick. They rushed him out of Las Vegas. No one's seen him since. He drops out by Twitter like if you've ever been broken up with by text, I think we found the thing that's even more ridiculous and disrespectful, and it's dropping out of a presidential race by tweet. We don't know where he is. There's no proof of life. It appears that we just had a meeting between the Israeli prime minister and the president canceled. I'd kind of like to know what the heck's going on. Is Biden okay? And if he is, why do we not have a proof of life from someone who we're told of his own volition dropped out of the presidential race?
Yeah, there's still, I think over the course of the last hour or so, the White House is still using his Twitter account to express all sorts of statements, but not a single word or even a photo of President Biden. Under normal circumstances, if a major presidential event had occurred, like the one we just saw yesterday, which is Biden dropping out of the race, there would be a photograph of him just signing the paper. That's the kind of basic thing you do to keep an inventory of history, and nothing, Sean Davis.
Nothing. You know, where's the White House pool? Where's the pooler who's supposed to know what's going on? We're told he has COVID. Maybe. I don't know. I'm kind of at the point where I just assume every single thing we're being told by this government is a lie. And at this point, I kind of shudder to think about what our enemies and what our allies around the world are thinking watching this display of nonsense happen in our country.
Yeah. And so Kamala Harris now is supposed to be the nominee, although that's a subject of some debate because not the entire left has rallied behind her. Even AOC was saying this past week that there's plenty of party elders around her and donors around her who are not on board with Kamala Harris. What do you make of her move now to try and get the party to back her for president?
Yeah, it's been interesting. And then I'll tell you, having just watched a party kick their own president to the curb after 4 years, I wouldn't be at all surprised to watch them kick their vice president to the curb in 4 weeks when they have the convention. They do have some financial and logistical difficulties if they go with anyone other than Harris, because it means all that money that Biden and Harris collected can't be immediately redirected towards that new ticket.
Right.
With Harris on there, they're allowed to do that. There's some issues with coordination. I think they can give a bunch to DNC, but they stand to lose hundreds of millions of dollars if it's anyone but her or Biden. The problem for them is that she might be the one person in the country who is less popular than Joe Biden is right now. People don't like her. It's why she had to drop out of the presidential race as a Democrat last time before there was a single vote cast in a primary. She's not particularly likable. She's pretty poor at politics. She's absolutely cringeworthy on camera. And I honestly don't know what they were thinking when they all, or at least some of them, decided that they're going to line up behind her.
Yeah. And they're going to have to run a basement campaign with her. If she's actually the nominee, there's no way they can let her stand in front of voters and have natural human conversations with them. That never goes well. Sean Davis, thank you from The Federalist for your vigilance on all of these issues and your time today. Good to talk to you, sir.